So one day I woke up and decided I needed a boat. This was right before my birthday, and I spent a couple of weeks on Craigslist and a couple other websites on the internet looking for boats. And as I drove through the countryside looking for boats and looking at boats in people's yards, I knew that I wanted something that I could build. I knew I could get more boat that way. And being a kid, growing up in the 80s, everybody watched Miami Vice. So I definitely wanted something that was fast. And if I couldn't get something that was fast, I wanted something that looked fast. So one day, as I'm driving into my shop work, I noticed there is a boat down the street. So I park my truck and I walk back down on foot, and I'm kind of leaning up against the gate with my fingers through the gate and just checking out this old boat. Not really interested, not really not interested, right? Just then, the door to the warehouse on the property blows open, and an elderly guy comes out and he says, "What are you doing?" And I just kind of, took a second and I said, "I'm just standing here, checking out the boat." He says, "You like that boat?" I said, "Well, I like boats." And he says, "Well, that's a really nice boat." He says, "It needs a little bit of work." He says, "What do you think it's worth?" And I just really had no clue what it was worth. I didn't really know a whole lot about brands at the time. I didn't really know a whole lot about that particular boat at all. So I just kind of, you know, smiled and said, "I don't really know, what it's worth." So he backed away and got to the door. And as he went to the door, he said, "Come back tomorrow," just like that. And he closed the door. Bang. So I didn't think anything of it. I took one last glance at the boat, and I just kind of walked back to my shop. So the next day, I got into work, like always, and I knocked everything out. And the interesting thing is, I was in between a manufacturing company called Mirage Boats. I think it's either Mirage Boats or Mirage Yachts. So the afternoon air would always be filled with the smell of resin, fiberglass, gel coat, and all that kind of stuff. And it just made me think about the boat. So for whatever reason, I don't know why I did it. I decided to walk back down to his shop, which was maybe about a half a block away. And once I got down there, I just kind of, posted up the same way that I did before. And I was about to walk away, and the door blows open again. And he goes, "Hey," he goes, "Hey, kid, what do you think? What do you think this boat's worth?" And I said, "Well, I don't really know." I said, "I looked around on the internet. I didn't really see anything, like it. The closest thing that I had seen was a Sea Ray." And I made the mistake of saying, "Well, it looks like a Sea Ray," and I guess it made him mad. So, so he fussed and cussed for a minute, the way older guys do out in you know, an industrial park warehouse district. And goes, he goes, "Well, what do you think it's worth?" I said, "Well, I don't want to offend you." At this point, I definitely didn't want to offend him because he'd gotten angry. So, he says, "Come back tomorrow." And he slams the door in my face again. So obviously I'm not going back the next day. Walked back to my shop, didn't think anything of it. And um, so the next day, I had no intentions of going back to that place. I actually had no intentions of actually working because it was the Friday before my birthday. And I was driving to my shop because I had left something there that I needed, and I was just gonna grab it and go. But I was driving past his shop, and he was outside, so I just kind of stopped being neighborly to chit chat a little bit, and he went straight to it. "So, what do you think the boat's worth?" And again, I kind of meandered around the answer, and finally he goes, "How much money you got in your pocket?" And I just got done paying all the bills and paying rent for the shop and buying supplies. So I didn't have very much money at all. All I really had was some birthday money that I had been given by my parents. So I, to this day, just don't know why I did it. Stuck my hand in my pocket and I pull the money out to just kind of see what I had, like, off to the side. And he snatched it out of my hand, looks at me, and goes, "Come back tomorrow," and backs into his door and slams it. So I'm standing there and I'm pep talking myself out loud. I'm like, "Anthony, if you hurt this old man, you're going to prison. If you kick his door in to, to get your money, no one's going to understand that it was your money in the first place, and you're going to jail. Just come back." So nothing from nothing leaves nothing. I go back the next day. When I get there, I am blown away. The boat is gorgeous. He's pressure washed it and actually washed it, and he's even pressure washed the concrete around it. It's so bright in the Florida sun that I can't even look directly at it. I have to look at the ground and kind of look at it out of my peripheral vision. I was completely enamored by this boat, completely. And he walks up to me with this smug look on his face, and he goes, "Hey kid, it's your boat." And I was on stuck. I had nothing to say. I didn't know what to do. All I could do was put this enormous ear to ear Kool-Aid smile up on my face. And he goes, "So listen, if you don't want the boat, it's okay. I'll give you your money back. But let me tell you about this boat first." So I had a buddy with me, and my buddy he's not seeing what I'm seeing, obviously, because his face is all twisted up. He's looking at me like, "Get your money, get your money." So we're walking around the boat, and this gentleman is explaining to me, all the things that need to be done to the boat, all the things that can be done to the boat, and the actual potential of the boat. The boat's dilapidated. The floor is rotted out. The one of the motors is missing. One of the outdrives is missing. One of the plates on the starboard engine is missing. The engine that's actually in the boat is, it's rusting and rotting out. The boat was a mess, right? My buddy looks at me. He says, "Can I talk to you for a second?" So we split, and I'm talking to my buddy, and he goes, "Tony, this boat's a POS. You need to get your money. Don't buy this boat. It's going to cost a ridiculous amount of money to get it fixed. It's going to take a really long time for anyone to fix it. Just don't." He's like, "Look, my family owns boats. Just don't do it." And I didn't hear any of that. I saw his mouth moving. I understood what he was trying to convey, but all I heard was Crockett and Tubbs talking to me. "Get the boat." So to this point, he's just like, "What's it gonna be, kid?" So I, I said, "I'm very grateful. Thank you. Uh, I don't have any more money for this boat." And he said, "The money that you've already given me is more than enough for the boat." And I looked at him, and, I asked him, I said, "Are you sure about that?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "But I have some stipulations." And I was like, "Okay, well, what are those?" So he said, "Rule number one, you cannot sell this boat to a particular person. I won't say their name, but he made me promise that I wouldn't sell the boat to this person. And number two was that I would not sell the boat until my family had had an opportunity to enjoy the boat. So that would mean I have to finish the boat, right? Get it seaworthy, get it in the water, and allow, my family to enjoy the boat. That was just one of the stipulations. And then the last thing was that he said, "I want you to remember that, life's not promised." And he said it just like that. He said, "Life's not promised. And if you're wondering why I'm selling this boat to you for so little money," he said, "it's because I'm dying. And I want to get rid of my toys so my wife doesn't have to." And that kind of drove it home for me. And he said, "You didn't choose this boat. This boat chose you." He said, "How many boats did you look at before you actually went over to one?" I said, I can't tell you how many I looked at." He said, "Yeah, this one called you and you answered." So he gave me some pointers on dealing with the trailer, and we shook hands. He helped me get the boat hitched up to my truck, and I told him thank you, and he said, "You're welcome, kid. Good luck." And he patted me on the shoulder, and I rolled out. Me and my buddy. So again, my buddy was like, "Tony, what are you thinking? Why would you spend, money on this boat? It's gonna cost so much money to get it, just so you can use it, let alone make it look nice." And I mean, he gave me an earful from my shop all the way over to the next. And I backed it down, got it into my space at my shop, in front of my shop, and got the bay doors closed, and kind of stepped back in the road to kind of admire my work, taking my baby home for the first time, and looked down the road, and he was waving. And that was the last time I ever saw him. Sometime shortly after that, I found out that he had passed. So, so that is how I got my first boat.